All right, in this video, I'm going to show you how to make an enemy follow a path using the path follower script. This should be pretty simple, but the script itself is involved, so I want to make sure to walk you through step by step so you can understand how it works. So first we're going to create the object that's going to follow the path. So we're going to create 3D object. Let's go with a cube, and let's put it in the level, let's say over here, right there, so that it doesn't block the turrets to start with. I don't like that it's the same color as the background, so let's go to materials and let's make it purple. So drag purple up here to the cube. There we go. Also, if you want, you could drag it into this area on the inspector and it will make it purple. Just however is easiest for you. If you're using a touchpad like me, dragging it into that area is a lot easier than dragging it onto this tiny little object. So we're going to rename cube to follower, save the level, and we're going to add a new component onto it of path follower. Now usually we click add component, we look for path follower, but I'm going to do it differently this time. We're going to go to the scripts folder, we're going to find path follower, and we're going to drag path follower onto there. You can also drag it, let's see if I can do it, onto this tiny area. Yep. So in the future, I might add it via add component. I might add it by dragging the script, but I just wanted to let you know that it's possible to do that way. Okay, so the path follower, to start with, has no path. So I'm going to show you how to set those up, and then I'll show you how the rest of these things work. So if you hit start just, off the bat with no path there, you're going to get an error. Down here in the console, it says path follower, no path specified for object follower. Follower being the name of the object over here in the hierarchy. So that's to remind you that you need to specify a path for it or nothing will happen. So the way that you set up a path is we set up a string of empty game objects and put them in a certain order, and that becomes the path. So we come here to the hierarchy and we set create empty, and we'll call this node 1 because that's going to be the first node in a series of nodes in the path. We're going to click on the follower and we're going to drag node 1 over here onto the word path, and we'll let that go. Now you'll see that this has changed. It says the size of the path is 1 and element 0 is node 1. So we're going to take node 1 and we're going to drag it, let's say to there. And you'll notice that there's this little wireframe sphere with a cube on it that's been drawn. And you'll see what that's for in a second. But that's so you can see it even though it's an empty object. So any node that you add into this list will get a little visualization like that. So we'll take node 1, we'll duplicate it, and we'll call it node 2. And we'll also drag that into the list. So you click follower and drag node 2 onto the word path, and that will create, well, so mine accidentally created it twice, which we don't want. We have node 1, node 2, and node 2. So let's delete that. So we'll right click on element 2 and click delete array element. Okay, and that will make it nothing. If I click delete again, it'll actually delete it. Another way you can do this is, you see how it says the size is 3? I can just change the size to 2 and it will get rid of the third one. Either way works. Okay, so coming over here, we'll click on node 2 and we'll drag it. And you'll see now there's a line between these two nodes. So this is the path it will follow. Starting with node 1, it will then move to node 2. So going back to the follower, time is how long it will take to reach the end of the path, right? Right now, it will go from its starting point to the first node, then to the end of the path, okay? And how long it takes to do that is 3 seconds. What happens at the path end depends on what you set here. So right now, if I'll show you how this works in a second, but loop means when it gets to the end of the path, go back to the beginning of the path. So we're going to add a third node to it so you guys can see how this works. But first, I want to show you just what happens. So press start. The guy moves to the first node, then to the second node, then goes back to the first and basically loops around. Okay. If we add a third node, so we duplicate node 2, call it node 3, we add it to the follower, drag it here on top of path, or you can change the size to 3 and then drag node 3 into that third slot. Either way works. So take node 3 and let's move it to the side. We'll put it over here. So now you see the path is this little L shape. When I press play, it will move to the start of the path, then it'll go to the end, and then it'll go right to the beginning, and it goes in a loop. If I change on follower, if I change this to ping pong, instead of going in a loop like that, it will go to the beginning of the path, and then it will go to the end, and then it will go backwards to the beginning. So that's the difference between loop and ping pong. Ping pong means go back and forth, and loop means go right from the end to the beginning in a circle. All right, so then snap to path start. Let's say we don't want it to go from where it begins to the beginning of the path. We just want it to start on the path. We could try to fiddly adjust it like that if we want, or we could click snap to path start, and as soon as we start the level, it will be there, and then it will just move. All right, that's pretty useful. And then the final thing on here is hover offset. So you'll notice that when I do this, a little ball and a line appears above or below the object, right? That yellow ball is where it will attach to the path, right? So let's say you want it to hover above the path. I can set a hover offset of 1 and press play, and you'll notice that now it's hovering above the path. So it snaps there and then moves, right? If I change the hover offset so that it comes on the other side, now it's hanging underneath the path. So that's how you get it to just offset from the path. All right, and now you can make these paths as complicated as you want, but that's how it'll work. So by itself, that's not that interesting. But let's say you want it to be representative of like a fireball, and it'll damage the player when it touches it. We can do that. We have this script called damage player on touch. So all we have to do is on our follower add damage player on touch. Say how much damage we want it to do. Let's go 10 and press play. And now if the player runs into it, which it might not be able to do because it's too high, so let's make it go lower. Hover offset 0. And let's go run into it. You'll see when it touches me, I take damage. So that's how you make something if you wanted to make it like a little fireball. So for right now, I'm going to disable these turrets. So I'm going to click on the turrets, and I'm going to disable this checkbox up here. That will just completely disable them, but they're still in the scene, so I don't have to remake them later. Let's say I still think this is too easy, and I want to make it a little harder. I can layer on some of the other scripts that we had from before. So let's remove the damage on touch, and let's add a laser rotator. All right. So now, and let's have it hang a little lower. Let's have it hang from the sky a bit, so it's by the floor. All right, so now you'll see it's moving and it's got a laser that comes around it. So if you want to make something that moves on a path with a laser that rotates around, let's make that rotate a little faster. You can see how this works. Or let's say you didn't want to use the laser rotator. Remove it. We can add a turret, right? And you'll see it added that little ball, so it's shooting from that side. So let's rotate it so that it's facing the way the player is going to be facing. That'll be 180 degrees on Y, and press start. And now you'll see it starts shooting things while it moves along the path. And let's say you wanted to do all of the above. You can also add a laser rotator on top of it, make the laser go faster. And now you've got a rotating laser and a bullet that shoots, and it's moving, right? So these scripts can all be laid on top of each other to create new enemy types that do different things that you want. Okay, so I'm going to save. I'm going to remove the laser rotator, and I'm going to remove the turret because we don't need that right now. So that's it for the path follower. In the next video, I'm going to show you some more scripts that you can layer on top of things to create new interesting enemies.